The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is pumping millions of dollars into attorney general races this year, hoping they can buy enough power to end investigations into corporate crime. If they succeed, there's going to be very little problems for their members the next time they break the law, and I have Howard Nations with me now to talk about that. Howard, it's very typical of progressives to be looking at the shiny things and then having the really bad things taking place while they're not even paying attention to it. I think it was probably 2 years ago, you and I were talking regularly about the idea that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and industry and the right wing is buying up the courts. And now they've taken it to a whole new level, and that is where now we have those same people buying the attorney generals of each state. Obviously, it's pretty clear on why they're doing that. Let's talk about it.
Okay, Mike, a recent example really shows what's happening in this. In the Nevada Attorney General race, the Secretary of State Ross Miller is running unopposed in a primary. And yet, 3 months before the election, $500,000 ad campaign smearing him, ad hominem attacks on him, are running 3 months before an unopposed primary. Why? Well, because it is outside money that's being put in, and it traces right back to the Chamber of Commerce because they're trying to attack him early. The Chamber of Commerce, through its Institute for Legal Reform,
Howard, to me, it's interesting on why this is taking place. Why are they going after the attorney generals? It's pretty obvious. If you practice law like you and I do, the attorney general is the one that goes after corporations when they commit crimes. So if you can have the hand-pick attorney general, that's a pretty good deal, isn't it?
Yeah, there are two great reasons for them why they're going after attorney generals. One is AGs are laughingly called AG, almost governor. There are 8 current governors and 8 current senators who came up through the ranks as attorney general. But the real major reason is the power of the attorney general. The power of the attorney general to their job is to sue or not to sue, to protect the public and consumers' rights, human rights, voters' rights, civil rights. But more importantly to the corporations, they have the power to prosecute or not. They can prosecute corporate fraud and corruption. They have the choice to prosecute whistleblower cases, to choose to prosecute or not healthcare fraud, polluters, mass tort feasors like tobacco industry, and they're very, very important. They have a very important role in reapportionment. But if you look at, for example, Eliot Spitzer, what he did as the New York Attorney General, he was known as the Sheriff of Wall Street. He sought both civil remedies and criminal remedies.
Howard, one thing we saw, we've talked about tobacco. For example, if the attorney generals throughout the United States had not been willing to get involved and go after the tobacco companies, it would have been virtually impossible to have them pay for the hundreds of billions of dollars that had been squandered in Medicare and Medicaid in each state because of tobacco-related illnesses that taxpayers had to end up paying for rather than the tobacco company. Isn't that kind of a prime example of how the attorney general, if they're effective, can really bring about social change?
Well, the tobacco settlement was not only a prime example, it was the wake-up call to corporate wrongdoers. The Colorado Attorney General, who's an exec on the Republican Attorney General's Committee, said that attorney generals can do more damage than a legislature can to corporate tortfeasors. And they can either choose to do so or not. As we see today, the D.C., the U.S. Attorney General, is chosen to protect wrongdoers. Wall Street stole $1 trillion from the American public. The only person who went to jail was Martha Stewart. On the tobacco litigation, the trial lawyers, went out, worked on contingent fees. They did all the work, 100% of the work. They paid all the expenses. They completely prepared the case, and they took these cases to attorneys general. Now, the attorneys general had the choice at that point. They could either prosecute or not based upon the work of the trial lawyers. And the ones that chose to prosecute and to let the trial lawyers prosecute agreed and recovered billions of dollars for their state. That just lit a fire under corporate wrongdoers.
Well, Howard, one thing we see, the Attorney General is also very critical where it comes to arguing in front of the Supreme Court of the state. So, for example, if Exxon or these people, the Koch brothers, or of course their money is hugely behind this, with the Chamber of Commerce, if any of their people are being attacked because they've committed crimes, they've injured people, they've committed fraud, they've stolen pension money from mom and pop, they've made a product that leaves a child blind or deaf. A lot of times that issue goes all the way up to the state Supreme Court on constitutional issues. And so the state attorney general is the person that makes that argument to the Supreme Court. Well, isn't it great if you own the attorney general? If you're Exxon and you've paid to have that attorney general elected, then isn't that kind of clear sailing for you?
Well, if you're one of the major polluters in the world, as in the Koch brothers, and you have an attorney general who can decide to prosecute you or not, that's very nice also. What the chamber realizes is that they can achieve protection of corporate wrongdoers if they have attorneys general who will refuse to prosecute consumer cases. And they banded together after the tobacco litigation. They formed the Attorney General's Associations, Republican and Democratic Attorney General Associations. The chamber has given 100 times greater contributions to the Republicans than to the Democrats, which tells you a lot. And the tobacco industry gave $7.5 million to the Republicans, $500,000 to the Democrats. So yeah, they're very strongly engaged in trying to buy up the attorneys general now who make the decisions as to whether or not to prosecute them.
Why have progressives been so dull? Why have they been so just absolute brain dead where it comes to understanding that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has us paying attention to House races and even the White House, where state by state people's rights are being dismantled? We can almost ignore what happens in Washington if we're under attack in our state by state. Attorney generals are out there in front of corporations. That's all the corporation cares about. So progressives have been absolutely brain dead where it comes to this issue. You know, we thought, Obama was really going to be such an important race. Obama has been insignificant. He's done really very little for progressives, but state by state, progressives have been under attack through things like judge races, attorney general races. Right now, there are 31 of them that are pending. I mean, how do we turn that around, Howard?
Well, it was actually turned around against the Democrats because at the time of the tobacco litigation, Democrats held the attorney general positions in the country by 3-1. As of today, Democrats have only one. They're only one ahead of Republicans on attorney general. So they've done an extremely good job of picking off attorneys general while the progressives have slept, been asleep at the wheel, and they're now turning themselves back to the super PACs after Citizens United are now going into judicial races. The latest example, for example, in 2012, there were $30 million was put into television in judicial races, and these are almost invariably attacks on judges or on judicial candidates. And they're attacking judges, even though their agenda is to have judges who will rule for them in civil cases and who will not find against them in criminal cases. Their agenda is to attack the judges on their criminal records, on the records that they have in prosecuting on criminal cases, because that's where they're most vulnerable. But they're focusing heavily now on the courts, the way they've been focusing in the past on legislatures and governorships and attorneys general.
So, Howard, in your professional opinion, I mean, you've been practicing law an awful long time. You've seen what attorney generals are able to do to cause harm to consumers when they're on the side or in the pocket of corporate America. If you had to make a choice, say, look, what's more important to the average voter out there? Is it something like an AG race or a judge's race, or is it more important that they put all of their time and money towards the presidency? I mean, I know what I think about it. I think we've just been, I think the whole issue's been totally mishandled by Democrats and progressives. And in our own backyard, we're getting killed.
Well, to answer your question, Mike, there's only one attorney general. In many states, there are 7 or 9 Supreme Court judges. So it's far easier to buy one attorney general who will not prosecute you, who will not protect consumers, who will not act at all on behalf of the public, but act to protect the Chamber of Commerce and its members. Much easier to get one attorney general than it is to get 5 out of 9 judges.
Yeah. Howard Nations, thanks for joining us. This is a story I hope people are going to pay attention to, because it's going to have a big, big impact on politics of the future. Thank you for joining me.